I need a win right now. I need a win. So I am going to take a break from my schoolwork, from my work, from my other sewing projects, and I'm going to do an easy project for me. I've been meaning to make a tote out of this piece. I don't even remember when I cut it out. I think it was like last spring. It's going to be a tote. I already, you can see I drew these lines down the sides where I'm going to sew the handle on, so they're just guide marks. What's it called? A pocket on the outside, maybe a pocket on the inside because that's pretty popular. And I'll hem the edges. So I'm going to do French seams. And then box out the corner, and then I'm done. I just need a win and just a mental reset. So let's do it. After I cut out this piece, like 9 months ago, that's the first step. Second step is I am going to hem the edges. So I'm going to just basically fold down 1 inch towards the inside. So this is the outside with the black lines. The inside, it does not have the black lines. Outside, inside. Fold the lip in 1 inch and then another inch, and then I'm just going to sew or a hem, whatever the fuck it's called. I'm fucking exhausted. So let's just sew. If I want a 1 inch hem, I measure 2 inches down so that I know where to fold to. Draw a 1 inch so that I fold on that line. That just doesn't work for me. Just trust me on this. It'll be 1 inch. 2 inches here, fold down. So this is just preparing, and then I fold again the second time. These wonder clips are wonderful. Gonna clip in a couple places, just like, yeah, 3 places is plenty. And then I'm gonna go to this side and I will again fold down to the 2 inch once. Second time, do my clips. Boom! So now I will just sew along the bottom edge of this, and then I'll do the same on the other side. So we're gonna sew just on that. And I'm just gonna line up my presser foot. Okay, so this edge I'm gonna line up with here. And that's one side. Now this is Kevlar material, so regular scissors don't cut this very well. And I have a little bit of an edge right there, so I'm just going to take some scissors and snip that off, just so nothing is really sticking out in the stitching. There you go. You can do another stitch on the top if you want. I think that this is just plenty. I'm probably going to end up putting a button in the middle, just as a closure point. But on the outside, it looks nice and clean. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I still have some bit sticking out, so I fancy Kevlar and carbon scissors, and just snip that edge out because we're going to do the French seams. And for the French seams, you want to have pretty clean edges so you don't have to do too much hemming or rework or anything like that. So just cut here. All right, so now that we did this pocket, which is not necessary, and you can just do a regular straight pocket, and if you do the straight pocket, you can stitch that on before you stitch the handles on. So just something to think about and consider. I personally like the accordion pockets. You don't even need a pocket, especially if this is your first go at it. When I first started making bags and all this stuff, I did not do really any pockets. I was just practicing, just getting it down. So now I am going to stitch up the sides. There we go. And so this is wrong sides together. So this is the outside of the bag is on the outside. And so, yeah. So one thing that I try to make sure to do is, making sure that the top is lined up. And so the way that I do that is just put some clips on it. And I find that it makes everything a lot better. Mo better. So I always start from the top, go down, because I want the most important for me is having the top lined up. So I know that the top is somewhat lined up mostly. And then again, I'm just using the edge of my presser foot as my sort of guide. So that's going to be about a quarter, about an eighth of an inch seam allowance here. And it's just important to sort of note with French seams, I have found that, the first seam that you do, so that will be smaller than the second seam, because with the French seams, you're essentially like just sewing the edges kind of in. So one thing I always like to do, make sure that my stitching is pretty even on both sides here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, you're going to be really see this, but you can kind of see the thread come through. You can see that little like pop up there. So that's like what they call the knot. So that's the thread from this side coming through. So this is the top side. So that means that my tension on the top is too much because it is pulling the bottom thread through too much. That looks nice, right? That stitching is nice. You don't see the other one popping through. So the trick is to get the stitching even so that you don't have the knot showing on either one, that it's kind of buried in between. So I'm just gonna spin the tensionometer, the tension knob for the top thread negative. That was about a third of a turn. Might have been more of like a quarter, because there was some lag in there, but we'll just ignore that. And then on this side, I again lining up the top edge so it's even, because it looks way better when it's like that. And I am just going to again go down about an eighth of an inch of seam allowance, and I'm just following the edge of one of the sides, which is this side of the material. And it's okay if it's not even. I'll show you how to rectify that. with some scissors, which is what I typically have to do. Now, again, checking my thread tension, the knot is still pulling through on this side. Still pulling through, so I'm gonna take another half a turn off of the top and hope that fixes it. However, now we're gonna turn the bag inside out to sew the next seam, and it's not really gonna matter. So now we have oh yeah, so edges here are not even, so one side is sort of sticking out. You can see that. So what I do is I like to even up the edges. So I just take some scissors and chop it up. And I want to make sure that this side is pretty even, just a little bit. You know, you don't want to take too much off because then the thread still needs something to grip. So there you go. All right, so we got even edges now, pretty much. So now we're going to turn the bag inside out, and after that we'll do the box. So turn the bag inside out here. The bottom corners don't actually really matter that much because you're going to be boxing them out anyway. So now that the bag is mostly turned inside out, I finger press the seams open, or just finger press the seams and popping through the bottom corners. Again, the bottom corners don't really matter because I'm going to be boxing out, so they don't have to be very pointy. Just make sure you kind of get the whole thing through. So now I just am going to finger press, sort of roll it in between my fingers to get the most seam out. And then what we'll do is stitch, then here, see on the second seam for the French seams, or at least what I think are called French seams, you do about 1/4 inch, because if you did an eighth of an inch, when you turn it back side out, you're gonna have these seams sort of popping out. So you want to make sure that you're sewing far enough in that you're capturing that whole like jagged raw edge, that, you know, that's why you're doing this. You know, an alternative is to use binding tape. So binding tape is just like this, and you can make it, but basically, I get it on a roll. So you just fold it in. See where this finger is? So you just fold that over, and then you're done. And then you sew it. But I like these French seams much better. So I use my presser foot, the outside of, or the walking foot, I guess you call it, as my guide. And again, making sure that everything's all lined up on the top. And then Okay. This one seam done. Again, make sure that the tops are lined up. There's a lot of, measure twice, cut once type of thing. You never want to get the seam ripper out, especially with this kind of material. Is once you start taking stitches out, you've already made the hole in the material. You can't undo that hole. So best be doing it once. All right. So that's our seams. Those are our seams. Got French seams now. Very fancy. And now we will box out the corners. So, and for the finale, we box out the corners here. So, we have our bag. We have these French seams. And so now we will draw our boxes on the corners. So I have these things, they're quilting squares, I believe they're called. But they're just basically square rulers. I have, they come in different packs. You can buy them individually. This one came in like a pack of like 6, and it has like 6 different sizes, or something, 5 or 6 different sizes. They're great. They're a little bit sticky on the bottom edge, so they don't move as easily when they're on material. If you want them to stick more, you can get some sort of like cling wrap type of stuff. That's what I put on these ones. So there's like cling wrap so that it's more sticky on the bottom. And then I also have these things that are also pretty they're a lot more gummy, and so you can see I have a couple of them, 1, 2, and 3. So those, that really makes it stick on fabric or table, which is nice when you're trying to measure stuff. So anyway, back to squares. So I'm going to do 2" by 2". I'm just going to draw the squares, and I line up the hem. So I'm not using the end. I'm not using this edge. I use the hem, and then I use the bottom edge. So if I had a hem here, I'd use the hem as well, to line up the numbers. So you can see I'm doing a 2" by 2". So that's where, so I'm just going to draw the boxes on there. And what am I going to use? I'm going to use my permanent marker. I use like the fine tip one for these, just to make some little mustache marks. Make sure that they go down. And you can just kind of like do some like dashes, but you're going to be sewing over them, so you're not really going to see them anyway, in the end. And unless you're like actually opening the bag and specifically looking for them, you're really not going to see them anyway. So you can do disappearing ink if you're using like cotton, or you can use chalk, or pen or pencil. Sometimes I use, if I know that it will show up on the material. It's just important to have the marks, or at least for me, I like to have the marks to be able to see. So I did 4 squares, 2" by 2" squares on each of the bottom corners here. So now what I'm going to do to box them out, that a lot of people, like a lot of other people, will actually just cut these boxes out. So like a lot of like tutorials that you're going to see will cut these out, and then you kind of like line up the edges. I don't for these, I don't do that. I don't do that for any of my bags other than the wine bags, because I think it helps with the integrity of the bag. Because if for some reason the box corners break, the holes will be open. If the box corners fail on these, you're not going to have holes in the corners. You're just going to have that square bag like this. So that's why I keep them intact. And I think it just helps with the integrity. It helps hold that thread in as well. So to box them out, so you're going to take the corners of your 2-inch by 2-inch box, and you're just gonna pinch that. And what I do is I pinch the bottom corner out, and then I just I finger press sort of the diagonal line between of the square, and then I do the same on the other side, and it should all just lay flat. So now you kind of have this like pig ear, right? And the lines should somewhat line up. Mine somehow never do. And then you're just gonna sew across. I like to sew on the seamed side, just because I think it's makes it cleaner. One thing that I always try to do is make sure that this seam is flat as possible, and that that there's no overlap of the material. So if you do it wrong, you'll see what I mean. So you kind of want to pull it as flat as you can, get that tension in, and you just sew across. I like to make sure that I go past the edge of the fabric to really lock that thread in. And that's really it. And just go back and forth a couple of times. Bob's your uncle. So tension still is off, which is annoying, but I just need the win. So again, other side, pinch the corners, pinch the corner, and then finger press the diagonal. And then on the other side, on the other corner here, again, pinch that square. So we got the square, the point here and the point here. Pinch those two and finger press that out and pull them tight. And then one thing that I like to do is to make sure that the seams are lying the same direction. So this seam is lying up towards that. And the way that I was going to do it was this one lies down because it's easier to sew it that way. So I want to remember to fold it the other way so that when I sew it, it will be lying the same way. Now, in my first couple bags, I didn't pay attention to that whatsoever, and it's fine. You really don't notice the difference, I don't think. It's just, as you progress, it's a nice little detail to pay attention to. Again, it doesn't mess up any of the function of the bag. It's just nice to, it's just a detail. And again, I make sure that I go over the edge when I sew, and over the edge as well to really lock that thread in. If I didn't go to the edge, I sometimes worry that the pressure can, put
tension on the thread and potentially break it. So I think that having the thread go past the edge and really locking the thread around the edge, see how it goes around like that. I think that really helps the integrity of the bag. I might be full of shit, but that's what I think at least. So we got the two pigtails, or pig ears, I mean. So we've got that. This is the inside of the bag with our accordion. And so now turn it inside out. And we got our win. Easy peasy bag. I can normally pump one of these babies out in, like, depending on, you know, pockets and kind of straps I put on, if I just do a grommet with a rope handle. Those sometimes take a little bit shorter, but I also have to motivate to actually put the grommets on, so that sometimes takes a little bit more. So cool. Got a cute little bag. It's not as big as I thought. That's like one thing that I find. Let's just put y'all up here. Okay, maybe not. That's one thing that I found is my bags normally come out smaller than I think they will. Unless I am paying close attention to the measurements and I'm like, I want this size finished bag. I normally just kind of like free ball the pieces, because when I'm cutting sails, you know, I sometimes can't quite dictate what pieces I get. So you know, if I have like a nice piece with a number or a stripe or a feature on it, you know, or if I want a certain number of bags out of a certain sail, I can't quite be too picky about the dimensions. And I honestly just don't think about it. But if I am thinking about a size, if I have an order for a specific size, then I sort of reverse engineer the bag and come up with the dimensions that I have to cut of the piece. So again, this is smaller than I thought it was going to be, which is fine. I'm just going to put it on my Etsy. And I might put a little button on the top here. You know, it's a nice little tote. You know, if you're just going on the boat for, you know, a cocktail or something, this is a nice little size. You can still sort of put it up on your shoulder. See, I mean, that's the deal breaker for me. I always like to have something I can put up on my shoulder because I'm always doing something with my hands. If I'm holding it like this, I feel like a dainty little princess, which I'm not. Might be a princess, but I'm not dainty. Yeah, 4 inches across the bottom because we boxed out 2 inches. So 2 plus 2 is 4. It is, let's see, we got about 9.5 inches so across the side. So the box on the bottom is 4 by 9.5, and it stands a little bit more than 8, so it's about 8.5 inches tall, from like the bottom corner straight up to the top. And we've got these little straps on it, so it's going to be really sturdy. So you can actually load a lot in this bag, not only because of the material that it's made of, but also because we have these straps that go around the bottom. So that's really going to hold a lot. You know, it's going to sort of hold the bag and hold the material all together. So that's why I like, you know, putting the straps all the way around. And you see, I mean, you can kind of see, I guess, the stitching for the pocket, but it doesn't look terrible. So someone will like it. it will find a home. It might take a little while. I also like that the green details on it and um, the green on the pocket as well. So success, happiness, and I don't think I've made a bag on. I've videotaped myself making a bag before, just a simple little bag. So um, that's a check on my list as well. So thanks for joining me in making that, and I feel better. I hope you find some happiness today in something that you do. So thank you. We'll see you later.